Hello everyone and welcome to the Captain Platform channel. My name is Anastasia and today I will talk about buttons in Power BI. I created a couple of examples in order to show you how we can use buttons formatting options in order to create, for example, an amazing navigation pane or even add an animated Christmas tree to your Power BI report. I do agree, having an animated Christmas tree in a Power BI report is not always useful. But as it's Christmas this week, I just wanted to add a holiday touch to this video. So, if you want to learn more about buttons in Power BI, just keep watching. So here we are in Power BI Desktop. To add a button, just go to Insert, Buttons. By default, we have a couple of examples such as Back, Information, Help, Bookmark, and so on. We also have a special button which is a navigator, so if I just go to navigator and click the page navigator, it will actually add me a page navigator to this report. So this is very useful when you want, for example, to have a specific page navigation and you don't want users to use the classic one. So this sometimes can be useful, and as you see, it's very easy to put in place. And we also have the other navigator, which is the bookmark navigator based on bookmarks which are in your Power BI report. Let's just add a blank button, which is a basic one, a blank one, and let's just look at the formatting options. So if I just select my button and I go to the formatting options or for the button, we have a list of customizations that we can make to this button. So we have the first one, which is a shape. So we have the different shapes. So we have, for example, the rounded rectangle, we have an arrow, and so on. So you can really use these ones depending on your needs. You also have the rotation. So for example, if you want to rotate the button in a way or in another, you can do it from this part. You also have some styling options, which is, for example, having a text on a button, having an icon, a border, a shadow, a glow, and so on. So you can put it, you can customize it from this part. And finally, you have action, which is the possibility to define actions when you click on a button. For example, that can bring you to another page, that can activate a bookmark, that can bring you to a website. So all the actions that you want to define, clicking on a button, you can do it here. What is good with the buttons is that we can define states, and by state I mean, for example, if I just add a new blank button, remove this one, I just go to button and do the same way. We see that, for example, in the styling option, we have the apply settings to state default. So when you add a button to your page, by default you have this default state. For example, if I want to add a text, which is default, we see that we have a text. We can also, for example, if I want to change the color of the text, the icon, the border, and so on, so we can do it here. Let's suppose that we want to add some dynamic behavior. For example, if I hover over this button, I want it to become pink, all pink. And that you can do it thanks to these different states available for buttons. So for example, I can choose the on hover state. So for the moment nothing changes, but actually you can change the behavior for this state. So I said that I want it to fill in pink when I hover. So I'll just go here, I put some pink color and I just change the font color so we can see the text. And I also change the text because when we hover, maybe we want the text to change. So I will just put it on hover. And then when we hover over this button, we see that things change. So this is how we can implement some dynamic behavior using buttons and button states. So based on that, we can do a lot of cool things. And let's just see how we can do that. I have a page with some examples that I created for this demo, and let's just go through each of them. So the first one is almost the one that I just showed you. So the default one, we have an on hover state and we have an on press state. So here we have something very basic. So we have a color, we have a shape, we have a border, We also have some glow, so you can really play with that with different options. So you can as well, for example, if you want by default the text to be shown, for example, on the top. So on the top, when you hover, it can be in the middle, and when you click, it can be in the bottom. So when I have this one, and so I showed you how we can use here for the default and hover and press using text. So we have only text. The second example is using icons and text. So for example, for this one, when I hover over it, I see a message. And this one, it's the same logic. So if I go to the styling option and I just check what I did for this button. So by default, we don't have a text, so it's empty. But we have an icon, which is an information icon. So I just put some colors, some transparency, and some alignment. And I think I also put the icon size. And if we want, when we hover over this button to show a text, we just go to an on hover state. And here we see that I have specified a text. And as you can see here, I no longer have the icon, and it's just the transparency of the icon, which is 100%, and so we won't see it. Because if you leave it, for example, at 27, you'll see that the icon is still there. So this is how we can do that. We can put only 100%, and that's it. We won't see it when we hover over it. The next example, of course, you can mix both of them. So you have an icon, and you also have icon plus text. So here, when I hover over this one, it states show filters. So for example, here we can use this one if we have a report and we have some hidden filters on a page. So you can put this icon somewhere on your page, and when the users hover over it, it states that we can show the filters, and he can click on that and show the different filters. So you don't show by default the text. Here we have the same logic, but with a default state, which is the icon. So if I go to the default, I have no text and an icon. And if I go to the on hover, I have a text and an icon. So it's a very simple example. So you just mix both of them in order to have something dynamic. The next example is based on icons, on colors of icons. This is very simple, so we have just two images. The default state is a default with a house in the same color as my background, or you can use a transparent background. And the second one is just a white house that's shown. So these are just two different images. So if I go to the styling option, I see that here I have an icon, which is the home button one. And I see that if I go to the unhovering, I just have another home button. So in the previous examples, we saw that we can have the image and a text within our button. But if, for example, you want your text to be shown on an image, this you have to do it in the image. So for example, for this home button, if I go to images, I just created a home button with home written on the image. And the next example is our famous Christmas tree. For example, for this Christmas tree, I have a mix between an image and the text. So it's written that we can hover over to see magic happen. So if I hover over this Christmas tree, it's just lighting up. So this, I accomplished it using different images. So I have an image which is my default state. I have an image which is my active state. And even if we click on it, we see that we have some colors changing. So we have the default, the unhover, and unpressed. And the last example that I wanted to show you is by using the dynamic text on a button. So here, if we look at this button, it states that please select a contact in the list. So if, for example, I click on a contact, we see that the button colors is changing, the text is changing, and that we can accomplish by the conditional formatting option available for our text in a button. So in the previous examples, we saw that, for example, if I take the first one, we saw that we put directly, a text on a button. But you can also set something dynamic. So if we go to our button, and for example, if I pick the disabled, or let's take the default one, we see that for the text, we have the conditional formatting enabled, which is based on a measure. And if I just show you the measure, actually we check if our data is filtered. We show a message, so a text that show data for the selected contact, and otherwise we will just show a message saying that person has to select a contact in list. So if I just unselect a contact, we see that the button is changing, so we have a disabled state of a button. And when I select a contact, we have the default one. I can also enable an option for the unhovering and even for the unclick. And the final step of our formatting button options is the action option, which allows you to, for example, to go back from a page, to show or activate a bookmark, to drill through. For example, if I have another page for my contacts, I can use, for example, this button to say that, okay, I'm selecting Alan Prescott, and then this button can bring me to a page that's filtered by this contact. So you can accomplish this kind of behavior as well. And you also have the page, the classic page navigation. If I click on that, I just want it to bring me, for example, to page 1. Let me just select this one, and I can activate the action, which is a page navigation, and just select the page 1. What is good with the actions is that you can also show a small text when you hover over this one. So if the text can be, for example, a page 1, the destination page name, in my case it's just page 1, and when I click on it, it can bring me to page 1. So you can use buttons also to navigate through different pages. You can also use buttons to call some question and answer features. So for example, if I click on it, I have this window of questions and answers. And finally, we can use it to just go to a web URL. It can be also dynamic, or it can be static. So for example, if I just take our MDW Partners website and just put it here, and when I click on it, if I just show you, it can bring me to MDW Partners webpage. So you can put something dynamic in this way. So you have page navigation, you have bookmarks navigation, you have a drill through, you have a web URL, you have questions and answers, and really you can do a lot of interesting things with these buttons. So here we are at the end of this tutorial. Thanks for watching. Don't hesitate to like, to comment, to subscribe, to ask questions. Thank you very much. Wish you happy holidays and see you in the next year's video.